The Know Your Foes series continues, previewing defending national champion Ohio State Buckeyes.
Welcome to the Bucky Report, your destination for all things Wisconsin Badgers. Authentic takes.
Oh my God.
Game analysis.
Touchdown Badgers! Ring one up!
And discussion from the fan perspective.
Woo-hoo!
Thanks for joining us and on Wisconsin.
Welcome to the Bucky Report. We are your hosts, Rajiv and Justin, back together for a midweek Know Your Foe episode. This week, previewing yet another monster of our schedule, Justin, the Ohio State Buckeyes. We've got a great guest with us today, Eric Boggs of the OHIO podcast. He's going to join us for an interview I did earlier today to talk about Ohio State and kind of break down some of the strengths, some of the weaknesses of that team. We're going to cut to that now, and then Justin and I are going to come back and react to it. All right, we are here with Eric Boggs, host of the OHIO podcast and fellow member of the College Huddle. Eric, how are you? Welcome to the Bucky Report.
Doing great, Rajiv. Thanks for having us in, man. Appreciate you jumping on our show a couple weeks ago, and we're excited to be here jumping on yours.
Well, what we're not excited about is playing Ohio State, because no team really is ever excited about playing Ohio State. But we're doing a part of our Know Your Foe series, kind of just getting our fans up to speed on Ohio State. Obviously, defending national champions. You did lose to Michigan again, which I'm sure we're going to touch on. But let's just start here, Eric. Overall,
thanks for reminding me.
Listen, you guys don't really have a lot of bad things going for you, so there's that. Overall state of what's the overall level of kind of pulse of the program, confidence going into this year? Obviously, you just came off a title year. How you feeling overall as a program right now?
There's a lot of really good optimism within the fan base. They have recruited very well. Obviously, they've developed very well, and there's a belief that despite losing a ton of talent on both sides of the football, the players waiting in the wings, obviously, it's their turn, it's their opportunity, and this is really not a rebuild, but a reload at Ohio State. It's kind of how it's considered. I don't think anybody's sitting here saying, it's a natty or bust type of year for Ryan Day in this program. But, there is some back-to-back talk. I think that goes – any team that wins a national championship, you're going to get that kind of discussion that happens. But I think in the realism is get back to the college football playoff. Let's see what happens. And hopefully along the way, we can beat our rival up in Ann Arbor and kind of make good on that.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of pressure on Ryan Day to get that done.
Yeah.
So Will Howard is gone, of course. You've obviously mentioned you lost a lot of talent. You still return incredible talent, and certainly Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs. But focusing on the quarterback, Julian Sayin, he's your starter this year. How are you feeling about him? Is he really the next great Ohio State quarterback? Is there a little trepidation there? What's the feeling on Julian Sayin, and what's the outlook for him this season?
Yeah, depending on when this posts, we're assuming Julian Sayin is probably going to be the starter. That's what everybody's talking about. But Ryan Day and the coaching staff are holding their cards close to the vest, that they're still saying that this is a competition between Julian Sayin and Lincoln Keenholz. But we're all assuming that Julian Sayin is going to be the guy based on just, pedigree, recruiting rankings, being in the program for a year now, and what some of the other players have said about him. Julian Sayin is another Southern Cal quarterback that seems to do pretty well at Ohio State. Last time we had one, C.J. Stroud, he ended up being a first-round draft pick and breaking some NFL rookie quarterback records. So
yeah, he's pretty good.
Yeah, he's pretty good. And there's a little bit of a, you hear some grumblings that, Ryan, he kind of reminds Ryan Day a little bit of C.J. Stroud between the ears and with the arm talent, but he's a very different quarterback. And it's really hard to kind of give him any comparison. You hear people say, "Oh, he's Joey Burrow," and then like next person says, he's some other guy. And I'm one of those people like just let him be himself, and we'll figure out what that is down the road. I think he's got some really huge hurdles very early on. Number one, you're going up against Arch Manning in Texas in game number 1, and they're going to be out for blood after knocking them out of the college football playoff. Number two, your first road game is at Washington, which is on a 20 home game win streak. Despite the fact they can't win on the road, they can't lose at home. That's your first road game as the starting quarterback at Ohio State. And in that's also your first Big Ten start. You got games again at Ann Arbor, where we haven't won in a while, and so there's going to be pressure there. You have the number one team in the country in Penn State coming to your house, so there's a lot of opportunities there for great achievements or falling flat on your face. And I'm just one of those guys that says, hey, you got 5-6 big games this year. Let's try to win 4 of them, get to 10-2, get back to college football playoff, build the momentum up into that, and then let's see what happens when we get there.
Obviously, one of the strengths of your team is, of course, Jeremiah Smith, one of the
Right.
best players in the country, no doubt about that. Receivers, because of him, are pretty strong. Is that the strongest unit on the offense right now? And conversely, what is the weakest unit on the offense?
Without a doubt, it's the strongest unit on the team. It might be the strongest unit in college football.
In the country? Yeah.
Yeah, it's sick what Brian Hartline has been able to do recruiting and developing that room, and it just turning out first round pick after first round pick after first round pick, and with no end in sight. And that's the thing. Now, his role, Brian Hartline's role, adjusts a little bit now as an offensive coordinator. So he's not just concentrating on recruiting and developing wide receivers. He's got to also call plays. So we'll see how that goes too. When you got 2 new coordinators, that's a major story for any team, let alone the team that just won a national championship. Conversely, the unit I think that's obviously got the most pressure on it because of the least amount of experience is going to be at running back. When you lose Travion Henderson, who was a 3-year starter, albeit he dealt with a lot of injuries his sophomore and junior year, and Quinshon Judkins, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, transfer in the transfer portal, along with Will Howard, like you mentioned earlier. Both of those guys are now in the NFL. You have very few carries at all coming back in that room, at least from the home team. Now, we did go out. We got C.J. Donaldson Jr. from West Virginia, and he looked really, really good in the spring at the spring game. But this is going to be a unit that I think James Peoples, the sophomore from Texas, is going to be expected to kind of, along with CJ, kind of head that two-head monster there in the backfield. And the other name that's getting thrown out there a lot is the freshman from Cleveland, Bo Jackson. Yeah, his name is Bo Jackson, everybody.
Great name.
Yeah, Bo knows Buckeyes now, I guess. His actual name is Lamar Bo Jackson. Lamar Jackson and Bo Jackson. So the kid, his parents set him up for either huge success or massive failure, one of the two. But he's getting some buzz, and he looked good in the spring as well. So, I think the unit's going to be okay, but to sit here and say, oh yeah, they're going to be as good as we were last year, that's just not, I just don't think that's possible.
And what about the line? I've read a couple things where that might be a potential weakness as far as protection and run blocking. How do you feel about the line?
Well,
right
what you read is wrong, because I am huge. This is the first off season going into season where I'm actually confident in the offensive line. And let me give you some quick reasons why. Every spring, my co-host and I have come away from the spring game going, our offensive line's terrible. Like they are bad. They are bad. Last year, we dealt with a lot of injuries on the offensive line, which meant guys had to play that were backups or on the 2 deep. And a lot of those guys now are starters, and they played in the college football playoff, and they played well in the college football playoff. We go out and we get the number 1 tackle in the transfer portal, and Ethan Onyoanwa, I believe is how his name's pronounced. I probably butchered that. I'm sorry, Ethan. Please don't hurt me. And then you couple that with all the guys who are playing in the college football playoff who started, who are returning now. So, yeah, we lost, I think, 4 offensive linemen, but 2 of them were injured, didn't even play in the college football playoff. And so you're really only technically replacing 2 starters on the offensive line that you just won a national championship with. So
It's not bad. Not bad.
It's not. And I have been preaching this to everybody who will listen. The offensive line is actually going to be a strength this year. So I know that I know for a fact that they're better at run blocking than pass blocking, but you know this, Rajiv. Midwest offensive linemen always are because that's what we do in the Midwest. We play in cold weather, we run the football, right? Pass blocking is what you learn when you get to college normally. So it might be a little shaky at first because they haven't all played together and it's early in the season. So I think Texas is definitely going to try to rush the quarterback and make Julian Saint uncomfortable early on. But I expect us to try to establish the line of scrimmage with the run and do a lot of quick drop passes.
Yeah. Let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball. Caleb Downs, another one of the top players in the whole country, happens to play for your team again, unfortunately, for the rest of the conference. Strength and weakness as far as units go on the defensive side of the ball.
Secondary is definitely the strength. We have recruited in the secondary extremely, extremely well. And despite the only fact that we're replacing 4 of the 5 starters in that secondary, it is absolutely going to be the strength of this football team. A lot of guys played in a lot of meaningful snaps in that secondary. And I look for the secondary to just be lights out this year. It's going to be tough to throw the football in that secondary. At linebacker, we lose a starter, but we got Sonny Styles coming back. He's a potential All-American, definitely first team All Big Ten. So he'll be back at linebacker, and the linebacking unit, to me, it has the potential of actually being a little bit better than last year. Maybe Arvell Reese steps in. He's a monster. He got a ton of run last year as the third linebacker. And Peyton Pierce is going to be an absolute animal. So that's a name you guys need to know at linebacker. But I think we're going to be fine there. The question mark is defensive line. You're replacing all 4 starters on defensive line. And they didn't rotate nearly as much as we have done in the past. And so we've got a lot of guys who, even though they're upperclassmen, they're inexperienced and they've been chomping at the bit, waiting for their opportunity. This will be that opportunity. We went out and we got a few guys in the portal, a couple depth pieces from the portal, but not pieces that we're expecting to start or really contribute greatly. Maybe Bo Atkinson from North Carolina could possibly become a really good third down guy. He can play both inside and on the end. We'll see how that goes. But Kenyatta Jackson Jr. is a name that's getting a ton of buzz as being the next sack specialist for the Buckeyes. We'll see how he does. Caden Curry, the big kid from Indiana, again, he's going to be a senior. He's been backing up Sawyer his entire career. It's his opportunity now. And then the big guys in the middle, you've got Caden McDonald coming back, Edric Houston, who was the big 5-star get a year ago. He'll be a sophomore this year. He gets his opportunity. Taiwan Malone Jr. is a 5th-year senior. He was a transfer a couple years ago from Ole Miss. A fun fact, he won a national championship on the baseball team at Ole Miss and a national championship team on the football team with Ohio State. There's your water cooler trivia, guys, right there. And a name that a lot of people might remember, Will Smith Jr., his daddy, Will Smith, was a Buckeye before his unfortunate passing after he went to the NFL. I believe it was Minnesota Vikings, if I'm not mistaken, either them or New Orleans Saints now. I can't remember. Maybe it might have been both. Anyways, he played for one of them before he passed away. His boy, who got a scholarship, was kind of like a local kid, 3-star kid, someone who wasn't getting recruited, heavily by the big boys. He's developed, and apparently he has had a phenomenal offseason, is going to get some play in the middle of that defensive line too. So there's names, but they're all unproven. We'll see how good they are early on.
But the skill set and the talent is clearly there. That's what Ohio State always just has, right? Which is hopefully you can't put it together, but something tells me that you likely will. All right. So floor ceiling predictions, Eric, is this a national championship year? You kind of mentioned potential back-to-back. Is that kind of the expectation? Certainly the expectation is to win on the last game of the regular season.
Yes. Yeah.
But what's your floor and ceiling and prediction?
Yeah. I mean, again, I think it's hey, let's get there and see what happens, because you got the best wide receiver in the country, the best safety in the country. If the pieces can come together, why not us, right? That's kind of the thought process. But is it an expectation to go back-to-back? it is not. At least not from people who are being realistic here. The ceiling for me would be it seems kind of bashful or boasting to say 12-0, but I mean,
it's a reasonable ceiling.
Is it possible? Maybe, but I'm going to say 11-1 just to say you got a new starting quarterback here, right? Like, he's not taking more than I think like 10 snaps in college or something like that. So I'm going to go 11-1 is the ceiling, and I think that's fair. I think the floor, and this is an absolute train wreck of a season, everything fails, is 7-5.
Wow.
That, like, you go to Washington, you get upset. You go to
Madison. You go
to Illinois, you get upset. You get beat by Penn State at home. You go to Madison and you hand Luke Fickell, a solid. There you go, brother. 7-5. This really, when you break the schedule down, Ohio State's got 6 games. It's Texas, it's Washington, it's Illinois. I'm throwing Wisconsin in there for you. Penn State and the team up north. That's the season right there. If you can win 4 of those games, you're going back to the college football playoff. If you lose 3 of them, maybe not, probably not. But if you lose 5 of them, it's a disaster of a season for you. And, I've seen it before. It was a long time ago, but we've seen Ohio State get into a situation where, momentum and everything, and go back to 2011. We were 6-6 that year. Now we had players missing, and it was Luke Fickell's first year as a head coach, but we went 6-6. So that's an absolute basement floor. I don't see us doing that. My prediction is 10-2.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. I mean, I feel like that's most likely. I was going to say 10-2 or 11-1. That's kind of what I see looking at your schedule. I mean, it's going to be a good year. Obviously, you've got the talent, and hopefully, saying, like, as for me, doesn't play well, that would be great, because we're obviously eyeing up a potential upset in Madison. Eric Boggs, the OHIO podcast. Tell people where they can find your show.
Yeah, you can find us on our website, theohiopodcast.com. You can find us on YouTube at the OHIO podcast, or you can find us at the College Huddle, thecollegehuddle.com. Big Ten, scroll down, Ohio State.
There you go. Eric Boggs, always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for lending us your time today.
Thank you, buddy.
Okay, thank you to Eric for joining us. Justin, look, we already got Alabama on our schedule. We've already got Ryan Williams there. Now we've got Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs and everyone that Eric talked about. It's at home, though. I mean, first of all, reactions to what you heard from Eric and your thoughts on Ohio State this year.
Yeah, I think the interesting things that you want to point to in this game are, number one, it's a new defensive coordinator. So you're wondering there, how does that affect them? Does stylistically, does that affect them? Do they struggle a little bit with possibly some changes that are regarding that? It's great to hear that the defensive line is a question mark for them, because I think we would agree that's been a massive problem for Wisconsin in this series. We have really struggled with Ohio State having plus defensive lines against us. And when we have been unable to run the football, we have really struggled. This is a season they may be a little gettable in the running game. We'll find out whether that's the case or not, but you look at it and you're like, we don't have to be like all world at running it, but if you can get to like 4 yards a carry, like that's better than we typically do against them. And that would really helps the offense in terms of functionality. And then I think from an offensive standpoint, you look at it and you're like, what is saying? We're going to find out who he is as a quarterback this year. I personally think that he's got a ton of talent. He scares the crap out of me. The question with him is going to be, does it all come together right away now, or is it going to be a year? I think he's going to be good. But I think what you're hoping for here is that you can hopefully rattle him in hopefully an intense environment, and that maybe his accuracy just isn't there, or you can get home to him a couple of times and get him sped up, because he's a young enough quarterback that I think that's a possibility. So that's kind of the keys to it. You're going to have to get pressure on him. You're going to have to find a way to do it without selling out, and you're going to have to be able to run the football.
Yeah. What I say every time, and I said this a couple years ago when we played Ohio State and when we were all at that game, I want to be in that game when jump around hits. Like, we have to find a way to keep it close. And the way you're going to keep it close is to grind out the game. Use the strength. As you mentioned, their defensive line obviously could be somewhat of a question mark. The thing is, Ohio State defensive line being a question mark is like an all-star defensive line for a lot of other teams. I'm not saying we can't run against them. I'm just saying like that they're probably still going to be pretty good. That being said, you're right. Got to grind that game out. It's got to be a game that we lean on Dylan Jones, Darian Dupree, Cade Yakimelli, that offensive line, and they will have had several weeks to really build up some really good practice and make sure that they're hopefully firing on all cylinders. Hopefully we're knock on wood still healthy at that point. And if we can slow the game down a bit and then use Billy Edwards' strength of being able to escape the pocket, hopefully, breaking some long third down runs, like we've got to frustrate them. Mm-hmm. This is, look, I mean, Wisconsin in general is finding themselves ranked in the middle of the pack, Big Ten, but even lower third by some prognostications, which means that when you look at the schedule and we play at Alabama, we play at Michigan, we play at Iowa, like there's a lot of games that are on the road that are huge for us, but this is one of those big home games. This is one of those key games where like, this is a home game for us. Yes, it's going to be against one of the top 5 teams in the country, no doubt. But you never know what can happen when you play a game at home at night. Probably maybe tonight, maybe it's not. But even still, and a guy with a new quarterback, right? There's not a guy like Will Howard that had pedigree at his previous university. You're talking about a guy that basically hasn't really played. He's played all of 10 some college snaps. So you're right, super talented, but I do think there's an avenue. There's a tiny window for us to be able to, we've got to play our perfect game, right? Can't turn the ball over, have to find ways to shut down the running game. Eric talked about the running back room being the strength of their offense, which I agree with, but I'm not necessarily as high on the offensive line as he is. And I'm just saying, like, they did lose a lot. I've read a lot of things about Ohio State recently, and there are a lot of people that are like, this could be a question mark. He is one of the people that says it's going to be good. He knows that team better than most. So I would defer to that. But if hopefully we can shut them down. And you're right. If we get to Julian Sand, anytime you got a quarterback that's new, if you get pressure on him, things can happen. Yeah. And anything can get flustered, right? Remember, we've got a pretty experienced secondary. I mean, not certainly with Nizier, maybe not, but with Hallman, with Brown, like we can find ways to disrupt him. Then I think there's a small chance.
Yeah, I think there's also the chance you go into this game, depending upon how Wisconsin's earlier season plays out, how seriously does Ohio State take Wisconsin coming into this game? Do they come in expecting to win and maybe not as amped up as they need to be to take care of business? We've seen it happen in the past with Ohio State teams where they play down a little bit because they're just expecting to be able to come in and roll, just roll. And really what it comes down to is Wisconsin's got to come out with a chip on their shoulder and they got to play hard. And if they give them that type of opportunity, or they don't seem as locked in, you have to take advantage of it. You've got to get points on the board if they make mistakes, because once they get locked in, and it will happen at some point in the game, even if you catch them with that, you have got to have a lead you're working with, and you've got to be able to kind of work your way through the storm to be able to make it out the other side and be able to continue to find ways to put pressure on them.
One of the difficult things is they've got, obviously their roster's full of NFL talent, but they've got potentially NFL stars in Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs. Caleb Downs being the safety, of course. Do you think like Hallman can cover him at all? I mean, do you feel like it's bracketing him a situation? Like, how do you feel like
you have to double? But the problem is they do have other guys that are problems. McCarnell Tate is going to be a problem for them,
And that's the thing, right? If we have A-guard on one side covering Tate, like that's not good. That's
going to be a problem. Yeah, I don't like that one either. I love A-guard's potential, but he's not ready for that yet. It would be a heck of a game if he plays average in this game. My perspective on it is you want to hold the ball away from him. This is one of the games where you do want ball control, but you need to be effective with your ball control. You can't have 8-play drives that end with you getting to the 40 and punting. You've got to have it where you put points on the board when you hold on to it. And that's one of the things I disliked about the previous staff and the way they handled things. And this one, I think Grimes is a little more aggressive. I think he will take chances to have some more explosive plays in situations like this, where maybe you catch the other team, getting caught up in the eye candy a little bit. he definitely uses more of that than I think we've seen recently. And I think that will be a major point for us, is how disciplined is this defense too.
A couple of years ago when Ohio State came to Madison, that game I referred to earlier, that was a game we were in fairly deep in. And remember who our quarterback was in that game? It was Braden Locke.
And then Braylon Allen got injured, and that was basically.
That's right. And Ohio State that year did not have an all-star quarterback. They didn't have Will Howard. He wasn't there yet, right? So he was still at K-State or wherever he was. But I think he was K-State. And that was a situation for them. Now, I'm not saying Julian Sayin is going to be bad like that. I'm just saying, like, if Julian Sayin isn't the guy right away that Ohio State fans expect him to be and people think he could be, then again, there's that opening there, right? And I think there is a little bit. And I always say, like, I've pegged this game multiple times as a game I don't really think we have a chance to win. But when you're home, anything can happen. And we've been there. We were there last year for the Penn State game that we should have won. Oregon game, we should have won. Ohio State a couple years ago, we could have won. We've always been in those games, at least to an extent. Where are you putting your confidence here? Like, what percentage are you attaching to this right now as we sit here today after practice just started?
Oh man, 20.
That's better than I was going to say. Yeah. I was going to say like 10 at most.
I mean, I think that this team is good enough to potentially keep themselves in the game. The question I have is, can they'll have to find a way to get out to a lead early, and they'll have to continue to trade punches. And that's what we just don't know. We haven't seen a Wisconsin offense to be able to consistently play at a high level throughout a game for a very long time. That's what you're going to need to be able to do. You can't have this where you score 14 early and then you get shut down the rest of the game, or you score 3 times, like the championship game where we scored 21 in the first half. And then that was effectively it for scoring for us. Like, you can't have that kind of game. You have got to find a way to at least put another 7 on the board in the game.
Yeah.
So it really, to me, is going to come down to how effective is this offense going to be at continuing to be productive.
Well, let's hope that it is, right? I mean, obviously we're recording this. Practice just started a couple of days ago. You did mention earlier we talked about pass rush, and and quickly just touching on a couple of things from practice. Mason Rieger looks like he's making some noise at practice. We've heard some good things. We're going to get into all that this weekend. Of course, we're going to talk about, and Nick Osen's going to be joining us, by the way, on Sunday for our regular weekly show. We're going to talk all about week 1 of practice. Nick's been there all week doing great interviews, getting good notes. And but any quick nuggets you want to bring up from that? Like anything that's really kind of struck you from those first couple of days of practice?
I've heard Billy's been playing well, which to me is the most important thing. He seems like he has taken a step since the spring, which to me is a big deal. I think people were a little too down on him for a guy that was new to a system and a new system that was being implemented with him getting his feet wet. Now is the time you have to prove that you've got it down and that you can work forward and you can get sharp. And I think that they can do that. And you have more pieces too. Like Tretch getting back into this group and being able to run around out there helps a ton. And I just think the running game is going to be good. Like all the backs, I'm pretty confident no matter who you put out there is going to be productive.
Yeah. So, I feel like the things we've heard about, Jones and just, it's nice. Like we have expected Dylan Jones to really be the guy. You've certainly talked a lot about him so far this offseason, and it looks like that's going to happen. And I really hope it does, which is going to be great. But yeah, the Ohio State game going to be very difficult. We will be back again on Sunday to talk all about the first week of practice. Thank you to Eric Boggs from the OHIO podcast. And we'll talk to you all soon. Thanks again on Wisconsin.
On Wisconsin.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoy the show, subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Bucky Report or The Bucky Report Podcast from wherever you get your content. Until next time, on Wisconsin.